So I opened my laptop this morning and I was shocked to see my family peering back at me. I had forgotten that I changed my screensaver, and it's a photo of my mother and her 4 children, me being the baby. My father's handwriting is scribbled across the bottom, and it says, "Constance, here's a little reminder so you won't forget your quirky family. Love, Dad." And it just makes my heart skip a beat every time I see my father's handwriting. And I felt that way all my life. His love language was letter writing. When I was in summer camp and college and over 20 years in Europe, my father always sent letters, and he would decorate the envelopes and he would send clippings, and I don't know, it was just so beautiful. So it was cool to see this photo. And actually, as I was starting to tell that story, I realized that my love of letter writing may actually track back to my father. His letters weren't gushy. They were just, like I said, little notes and love quirps, but I've always had this fascination with letters. Anyway, I just opened my computer and went to the file that says letters to people I love. That's what my file name is. And there aren't that many in there because most of my letters are handwritten, but I found one that I wrote to Charlie, my buddy Charlie. Charlie is my dear friend Lisa's son. I've known Lisa since she was 11, and this is a letter I wrote to Charlie to accompany a Christmas present that was given to him when he was about 11, actually. And the letter reads, "This little gift I have for you, Charlie, comes with a great story about friendship. Mary Notter was one of my 2 best friends growing up. She came from a large family, and there were 9 kids. They lived in a large white house on the corner. Mary's family was very different from mine and from most of the other families in the neighborhood. They had very little money, they had a stinky house, they drove beat-up cars, and some of the kids got into trouble. Even though Mary's house and family at times made me feel nervous and uncomfortable, I accepted Mary for who she was, and we shared a great friendship. One day, about 7 years ago, I went on a trip to Colorado with my parents. Mary lives there, and I got to see her again for the first time in over 20 years. Even though many years had passed and we had very different lives, we had the best time together. Mary told me a story about myself that I had totally forgotten. It was about something very generous and kind that I had done for her, something she had never forgotten. It made me cry and brought back a lot of great childhood memories. At the end of our nice day together, she took off her jacket and gave it to me, knowing just how much I loved it. It makes me especially happy that you are the one who is inheriting my prized jacket, because I think one of the very nicest things about you, Charlie, is that you really know how to be a friend. It makes me and your family proud that you befriend people old and young, nerdy and weird, shy and outgoing, and from all different countries and walks of life. You are generous with your spirit, and you are a very kind person, which is way cool. I love you, Constance." Whew, that made me emotional. I think it's because it reminded me of my father, actually. My father was always speaking to what he called my higher self. He was always noticing and recognizing and calling attention to the nice things about me. And I can see that I was doing the same with Charlie. I had totally forgotten. Charlie was a gregarious, loving, friendly, exuberant kid. He drove people nuts sometimes, but I really saw that he was so inclusive, and he kind of was equal opportunity lover. You know, he was just friendly and nice to everybody. Actually, while I'm on the subject of letter writing, I've been carrying around a letter that I received in 2008, the year my father died. Probably was January 2009, and I remember being so surprised when I received it. It was from a man named Peter, and Peter was a very senior executive in the fashion business. He was a bit of a mysterious, mercurial figure, and he and I had a very respectful bond, but I don't know him very well. I've never spoken to him since. And this letter that he wrote me, I rediscovered about a year ago. My father died suddenly in a car accident, and he had sent me a limited edition book on grief with this long handwritten letter. And I remember at the time thinking just how lovely it was and how thoughtful it was, but the letter and the book didn't completely land with me. I was new to grief, and I was still completely raw from this experience. But when I rediscovered it about a year ago, I thought it would be really cool to send it back to him. So I went and had it photocopied, and I've been carrying around this idea in my head, but I haven't exactly followed through. Seeing the letter that I wrote to Charlie is making me realize how cool that idea is. I want to send it back to him so he can see his own words and his own writing that I'm sure he's forgotten, And he'll see just how thoughtful and kind he was at that time that was so painful for me. Anyway, you know how when you've been carrying around a notebook for months and you're like, you got to give it up, and all those little treasure notes that you have to yourself, or I don't know, notes you've taken, lists of things to do, things you don't want to forget, whatever it is, I go through them and highlight them, and then I bring them into my new notebook. And I was doing that over the weekend, and I found this beautiful thing that I wrote. I'm not quite sure where it came from. It's what I call a beautiful question. Oh, I remember. It was from an interview with Tim Ferriss and Jack Kornfield. And the question he posed was this: what would love have you do today? So if I turn that question on myself, what would love have me do today? It would be obviously to take a moment and write to Peter. And it would have me keep my phone off today, because I have been out in the world a lot and I need to have a quiet day. So I'll ask you that question. What would love have you do today? That's all for now. Until next time, from my heart to yours.